Look, that game versus Oklahoma City with the Cavs, such a big game, such a great game, I think, in front of all the national people, especially like the people who work in basketball, that it's going to be a tone changer for how the Cavs and how the league treats the Cavs going forward. And you can already tell the morning after the tone has changed nationally about the Cleveland Cavaliers and about the Oklahoma City Thunder. And this segment from ESPN is a great example of it. Let's listen.
Thrilling 129-122 victory over the Thunder in the most anticipated game of the regular season in a battle of the best from the East and the West. On a night franchise cornerstone Donovan Mitchell shot 3 for 16. Evan Mobley, Jared Allen combined for 46 points and 21 rebounds. Brian Windhorst at your service. Hello, sir.
S.A., could the Cavs truly win it all?
They could. They could. I'm watching this team. First of all, they're 11-0 against the Western Conference. They're undefeated in their 11 games against the Western Conference. So let's not ignore that, okay? I'm looking at them right now. Molly, right now, they're number one in offensive efficiency, field goal percentage, and three-point percentage shooting. Their net rating second only to OKC. Now, OKC came into this game as the top defensive team in the NBA, and they surrendered 129 points. And this was with Donovan Mitchell having his worst game of the season, 11 points, just 3 of 16 shooting from the field. Jared Allen, this kid, Evan Mobley, I mean, listen, this brother can play. And when you look at him, and Allen had 25 points, they combined for 46 points, 21 rebounds. I'm looking at OKC and I'm saying, okay, Chet Holmgren is still not back. He's not out there. And you'll definitely need him to go up against a team like Cleveland. But Wendy, I got to tell you, obviously we don't want to summarily dismiss the reigning defending NBA champion Boston Celtics. We know what they can do. We know they know how to do it. We know they got 2 stars on their squad. And when Kristaps Porzingis being there, if he's healthy in the postseason, we know what that could mean for them. Plus, they all play their roles. We got that. They're champions. And we need to see Cleveland to believe it. But I got to tell you something. They got size in Cleveland. They got athleticism. They've got shooters. They defend. They're exceptionally well coached by Kenny Atkinson. I believe that Donovan Mitchell is a bona fide star in this game. He's big time. Darius Garland is balling. So when you look at all the pieces that they have and the way that they're playing together, and you've got guys like, 11 different guys, getting minutes for crying out loud. Nobody's averaging more than 32 minutes a game. And you're young to begin with. You're going into the playoffs with all of those abilities, plus fresh, youthful legs at various positions. I got to tell you, Wendy, I can't sleep on the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm going as far as to say this, which is damn near sacrilegious. Okay. Right now, until I see further notice from the New York Knicks, all season long I was thinking about Knicks, Boston, Knicks, Boston. Nah, if I'm going to be an objective viewer, I got to look at the Cleveland Cavaliers and say, yo, peeps, they got a chance to win the chip, to win it all.
This reminds me of something that Tim Legler said about the Cavs that we talked about on this show before, which is when you actually watch the Cavaliers, like if you actually sat down, not just like checked them out because your team's playing them, but like if you've sat down and like really focused and watched the Cavs, you understand how real this team is. And what I think is interesting is because I've been watching the Cavs every game, I saw this game versus Oklahoma City, and it wasn't a bad performance by the Cavaliers, but it wasn't near like their best. They've looked crisper. They've had better offensive games than they had against Oklahoma City. Now, albeit Oklahoma City is one of the best defenses in the NBA. Like the Cavs usually shoot 45% from 3. They were at 41. Like it's a slight dip of where they were. Still very good numbers. But you get Donovan Mitchell having a bad game. George Niang wasn't very effective from 3 like he usually is, which is a crazy statement, but it's a true statement this year. You got some guys who are overly effective, right? Like Max Strus, but Ty Jerome, who's usually a factor from 3-point, he wasn't. And it's interesting when people watch this game, they're like, oh, they get it now about the Cavs. And I'm like, they're capable of doing so much better than how they played versus Oklahoma City. Like, again, it wasn't a bad effort, but I've seen the Cavs play better than that. And that just goes to show you when people actually watch this team, the things you want to talk about when you actually watch this team aren't the garbage that people have been talking about nationally with the Cavs, right? Like when you watch this team, you want to talk about how they're dominating, how they're doing what they're doing, the evolution of Evan Mobley and all of these other things. But if you're just looking at the box score and you're just watching highlights and you're not really watching the Cavs play basketball, that's how you end up with the narratives about the team and the conversation about the team being largely about, oh, can they win in the playoffs? Are they the Atlanta Hawks from whatever year and all that other stuff that people have been throwing at them? Because you got to watch the Cavs to understand what they're doing and just how difficult they are to defend. But let's hear what Brian Windhorst has to say.
That mastery was as high of a level as I've seen in the regular season in my 20 plus years covering the NBA. I'm talking watching the Thunder play with physicality and speed, and watching the Cavs tight passing and player movement and ball movement, and watching them go back and forth. There were 30 lead changes in this game. And yes, there was a lot of threes shot, but it was within systems. It was if you don't love this game, if you watch this, you don't love basketball. This was a display of great high-level basketball. To talk to you about the Cavs, what they have is 9 or 10 players who can all dribble, pass, and shoot. And that may seem like a basic concept, but that makes them an absolute misery to defend because all of their players are live. And not only that, the skill level at which Jared Allen and Evan Mobley work together, this was a group that I admit, I thought that they couldn't work together. After last season, I said they are underachieving. They have to maybe consider breaking them up. Kobe Altman, their GM, and Kenny Atkinson, when he came with the plan, said there's a way to do it. And basically what Kenny Atkinson is doing is playing Evan Mobley kind of like Draymond Green. He's not Draymond Green, I want to be clear. Right. Kenny Atkinson was the last 3 years in Golden State, won a ring with the Warriors. You watch how Evan Mobley gets the ball in the middle of the court and then disseminates it, and he does it with speed and accuracy. It's reminiscent of the way Draymond plays. The way the Cavs play, with everybody who steps on the floor can hit a three, and the way they move the ball is reminiscent of the way the Warriors played when they first started their run with Steph and Clay and Sean Livingston and Andre Iguodala. Like, they don't have Steph. I don't want to make it a straight comparison. No, nobody. But Steve Kerr has seen this. Steve Kerr said the exact same words about the Cavs about 2 weeks ago.
So to that point, look, it's one thing when somebody in the media is saying it. It's one thing when fans are saying it, comparing the Cavs to the early Golden State Warriors. But it becomes entirely different when early in the season, Draymond Green's on his podcast after playing the Cavs, and he's like, wow, this is just like playing the Warriors back in the day, or at least what we used to do to teams back in the day. And then he specifically points out Evan Mobley is somebody who does a lot of the same stuff that he used to do for the Warriors. And then you hear Steph Curry talk about how this Cavs team reminds him of the old Warriors, and Steve Kerr talks about how that reminds him of that. I would love to have gotten Klay Thompson's words on it after the Cavs beat Dallas, but I'm pretty sure he comes away with a similar takeaway here. And that is a telltale sign of like, hey, the Cavs are able to run this system. It's not identical to what the Golden State Warriors did because a lot of that hinged on them having the two best shooters ever to play basketball. And the Cavs don't have that. They don't have the two best shooters ever to play basketball. But what they do have, as Wendy talked about, is they have just an unlimited array of guys who can get their own shot and find guys open shots. Like they can just move, dribble, pass, shoot. Like there's no dead end that you can pass it to on the Cavs. Even somebody like Jared Allen, who does not have much of a perimeter game, he's a good enough passer to get himself out of any tricky situation that he might be in. And then you got Evan Mobley, who's a legitimate perimeter threat now, right? He's a legitimate three-point threat. He stretches the floor. Like you just have no dead ends. Everybody's so interchangeable, and Kenny Atkinson's using them so interchangeably that you're able to just get so much out of these guys every time that they step on the court. And there's a reason why it's not just Cavs fans saying this. It's not just Brian Windhorst, who was not sold on the idea of Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, but now is saying this, right? Kenny Atkinson has put the pieces in the right place. Evan Mobley has developed, and this is another point I want to get to. A lot of times people talk about this Cavs team, oh, it's the same roster from last year. How can they be contenders? Well, we talked about this, right? I talked about this for years, ever since Evan Mobley came to the Cleveland Cavaliers. I have said these superstars take longer than you think to develop because they come into the league at 19, right? And everybody expects it to go on like an NFL timeline where these guys are good in their second, third year, and they're who they're going to be in their second or third year. That's not how it works in the NBA, right? Like usually stars don't become who they are until they're 25. Evan Mobley is 23 years old. Like, I don't think he's close to what he will fully become, but he's at the point of his career where he's putting a lot of the things together, the foundation of what could be a superstar-like player on the offensive end for the Cavs, right? He can get his own shot. He can shoot the three. He can be a threat in the perimeter, passing the ball big to big. He has great vision for a big. And then defensively, he almost won Defensive Player of the Year as like a second-year player in the NBA. You know that there's no issue with that, right? He might go down as the greatest defensive player to not win Defensive Player of the Year when it's all said and done, because like it's just going to be difficult for him to get that award now. But all of that being said, Evan Mobley developing and rising to this level, that is a bigger deal for the Cavaliers, or was a bigger deal to the Cavaliers than any free agent signing, any trade could have been. Because this thing goes as far as Evan Mobley can take you, right? Donovan Mitchell's going to be the best scorer on the team. That's not a problem. But if you want to win a championship, Evan Mobley has to get votes for NBA Finals MVP if you do, right? Like he's going to have to emerge in order for that to happen. And what we've seen this season, on top of like Cavs getting great efficiency out of other players, is that Evan Mobley is taking that leap. It's the fourth quarter. It's 1 minute left. He gets the ball at the top of the key and he drives, bangs on Isaiah Hartenstein. That's some shit that wasn't happening last year. That's some shit you expect from a superstar player. That's why this Cavs team's different this year.
Holmgren, as Stephen A. mentioned, if Chet Holmgren plays in this game, Jared Allen doesn't dominate the way he does.
Correct.
But if you watch the Cavs play, you have to be impressed.
Let me tell you something right now, Wendy. I piggyback off of what you're saying. 11 players for the Cleveland Cavaliers are averaging at least 17 minutes a game. 11 players. Yeah. And Atkinson is just showing the brilliance of Steve Kerr as a coach, because we know that as good as Atkinson was, he wasn't coaching the way that he's coaching now when he was a head coach in Brooklyn before that, Wendy. You know that, I know that. So being on Steve Kerr's bench, watching them do the things that they do certainly helps. When you brought up Evan Mobley and Draymond Green, here's a big point, Wendy. You alluded to it, but I'm going to piggyback off of that and crystallize it. That brother Evan Mobley can shoot a three. He can shoot a three. Once upon a time, so could Draymond. In the earlier parts of Draymond Green's career, Draymond Green would shoot threes, and he'd make them. And then obviously over the years, it nosedived.
Oh my God. Am I that old? Because like he's talking about Draymond Green shooting threes, like people don't remember that he used to shoot threes. Like y'all, is that a thing? Is that a thing? Like chat, y'all tell me if that's a thing, that the younger folk out there are unaware of the fact that like Draymond Green used to be a legitimate 3-point threat in the early Warriors days, right? I think the last year of him being a legitimate 3-point threat was the year before they got KD. But up in like from like 2013 to 2016, he was a legit 3-point threat. He made like 7 threes, I think, in the NBA Finals Game 7 in 2016. He was smacking threes in 2016 for sure. But yeah, is that really like age yourself thing? Draymond Green making threes? I know he got turned into the backpack meme, and everybody made fun of how he shoots that three and everything, and it just started bricking a lot. But like, that shit just made me feel old. All right, y'all. That's it for this video, man. Y'all have a good day. Have an even better night. Peace.